What stirs in the dark between the stars, when even the Emperor dares not speak its name? So began the Forbidden's query scratched into the rust-black surface of a vault tablet found on Aswar Prime. Its runes pulsed like old wounds reopening, bleeding memory into the cold air. Scholars claimed the question was older than the Imperium itself, perhaps older than humanity. And as the words awakened, so too did the echo of an ancient calamity, the fall of 500 worlds. The chronicle unfurled like a dying star's final exhalation, and every syllable carried the weight of civilizations crushed beneath something vast, patient, and hungry. Across the void, a whisper stirred metallic, predatory, eternal. The Nightbringer remembered. The first tremors began on Valoria Secundus, a shrine world drowned in incense and prayer. Its people did not see the omen at first. They only felt the cold, an impossible cold, that devoured the heat of suns, that made even the most fervent preachers falter mid-sermon, as frost crept across relics said to be blessed by the Emperor's hand. Astropaths screamed of a silhouette crossing their inner sight, a blade-thin shadow that severed their thoughts like a scythe through silk. When the skies finally split, no mortal eye could deny it. Something ancient had turned its gaze upon them. In orbit, a Black Templar strike cruiser witnessed the first world's death throes. The void itself seemed to recoil as a titanic figure emerged from a halo of coruscating green-starved light swallowed by its outline. Its arrival didn't shake the heavens. It silenced them. The Nightbringer drifted above Valoria like a god surveying a forgotten altar, its necrodermis shell flickering with the souls of 1 billion extinguished lives. The Templars prepared to launch, but their chaplains felt it first, the sudden absolute absence of death blessing, as though the Emperor's promise of afterlife had been cut away. Their prayers tasted hollow. Panic bloomed across nearby systems. Imperial commanders barked contradictory orders, Vox channels collapsing beneath overlapping screams. 500 worlds formed the Celestine Marshes, a proud bastion of Imperial faith, and one by one their astropaths reported the same horror. A lone figure walking the void, waking the dead metal buried beneath their crust. Tomb cities ignited like dying stars. Necron legions rose in perfect silence, answering the call of their death god. Every uprising followed the same patterned lifeless stillness, the shimmer of quantum fire, then the soundless march of living steel reclaiming what had once been theirs. Entire continents vanished behind sickly green storm fronts. On Kithrin Reach, the Adeptus Cerritus made their stand. Canonis Viridiana rallied her warriors beneath the Basilica of Eternal Hymns, its dome scarred by the lost fire of a dozen uprisings. As Necron ranks advanced, the sisters sang louder, their voices trembling but unbroken. Holy fire rained from the parapets, melting monoliths and shattering ranks of deathless machines. But every fallen Necron twisted, reckoned, and rose anew. Then came a moment no hymn could smother, when a colossal shadow passed over the basilica and the temperature plunged. The Nightbringer descended. Even faith froze. Far from the burning marshes, an inquisitorial conclave convened aboard the starfort Absalom's Gate. Inquisitor Denholt stood before a hololithic projection that sputtered with corrupted star maps. Each flickering icon marked a fallen world. The room reeked of incense, sweat, and fear disguised as zeal. Denholt spoke of a truth too old and too dangerous, that the Nightbringer had not awakened by chance. Something had stirred it, called it. And worse, there were signs that its siblings, the other Catan shards, were shifting in their eternal entombment. The conclave erupted in denial. But Denholt had seen the visions carved into Aswar Prime. He knew the pattern. On the Forge world, Jaren Ultima, tech priests discovered the unthinkable. Deep beneath their manufactoria lay a dormant Necron nexus, its architecture identical to the ruins rising across the 500 worlds. Yet this one pulsed with strange, unnatural energy, Imperial energy. Someone had fed it power. Someone had awakened it. Magos Oroth studied the impossible readings, his mechadendrites trembling. The data suggested the activation had been deliberate and recent. As alarms blared across the forge spires, Oroth transmitted a single corrupted message to Denholt. It was not the Nightbringer who awoke first. Then the signal cut as the world fell silent. Aboard the battle barge Righteous Oath, Captain Meridius watched the Mars collapse through fragmented Auspex logs. For every world that died, another cried for aid. The Astartes answered where they could, carving through Necron phalanxes with bolter and blade. But every victory came at a cost measured in blood and broken oaths. Meridius confided in his chaplain that he felt a presence, not the Nightbringer, not the Necrons, something else tracking his ship through the warp. The chaplain dismissed it as stress. But that night, Meridius dreamt of a great tomb city beneath the Imperial Palace, and a single emerald star pulsing beneath Terra's soil. In the ruins of Valoria, one lone survivor staggered through a blizzard of ash. Her name was Lysa, a novice of the vanished Order of Aben Mercy. She wandered through frost-shattered cathedrals, following a voice she swore belonged to her deceased sister. But the voice led her deeper, toward a newly opened crack in the planet's mantle. There she found a monolithic chamber filled with symbols older than the Nightbringer symbols she did not recognize, but which recognized her. When she brushed one of the glyphs, it flared with impossible warmth. The ground shuddered. Something woke beneath her feet, not metal, not machine, but alive. The Chronicle of the 500 Worlds continued to unravel, each scene drowning the reader in greater dread. It spoke of unnatural alliances, of Imperial commanders receiving orders from sources they dared not question, of Necron legions marching around certain cities rather than through them, as though protecting something buried there. It hinted that the Nightbringer, for all its terror, was moving with purpose and restraint, as if it feared what else might awaken. Inquisitor Denholt, poring over the final segments of the Chronicle, felt a chill deeper than any that can could conjure. It was not the Nightbringer's awakening that doomed the 500 Worlds. It was the question that came before it. A question that the Chronicle implied had been asked by a human voice. And as Denholt reached the last line, the hololithic projection flickered, then displayed coordinates. Coordinates for Terra. Then the archive cut itself off, as if silenced by an unseen hand. And in the dim quiet, something tapped from inside the sealed vault tablet once. Just once, as though answering the ancient question. The vault tablet's single tap lingered in Inquisitor Denholt's skull, like the echo of a distant executioner's hammer. The air in the chamber thickened, dust motes drifting like pale souls caught between life and judgment. Denholt tried to steady his breath, but the coordinates still glowed before him, Terra. His aides whispered prayers, their voices brittle. None dared question the meaning, but all felt the rupture in fate it implied. As the tablet dimmed, Denholt sensed something watching from within the carved obsidian, something with patience millennia old, waiting for him to take the next step. In the quiet, he felt dread twist into a strange, forbidden curiosity. The Chronicle wanted to be read, and it wanted him to move. On Valoria's corpse world, Lysa descended deeper into the fissured mantle, guided only by the warm pulse of the unfathomable glyphs. The air shimmered, tasting of copper and memory. Her sister's voice, impossible, tender, spoke from beyond the shadows, urging her forward. She clutched her broken rosary, whispering half-forgotten prayers, yet each step carried her further from the Emperor and closer to something ancient and alive. Beneath miles of dead stone, she reached a chamber not Necron-made, but crafted of bone-white material that seemed to breathe. In its center lay a sarcophagus shaped like a human figure, encased in radiant amber. When she touched it, the warmth surged. A heartbeat answered hers. In the star fort Absalom's gate, the conclave dissolved into turmoil. Some inquisitors demanded immediate petition to Terra. Others insisted the coordinates must be a Necron deception. Faith buckled beneath politics, and politics frayed beneath fear. A young Ordozino savant, Gullen Stroud, dared to claim aloud that perhaps Terra itself had triggered the Nightbringer's stirrings. Gasps filled the chamber. Accusations followed treason, heresy, misinformation seeded by Xeno's influence. But Denholt said nothing. He only watched Stroud, studying the tremor in the man's hands, the conviction in his eyes. It was conviction he had seen before among zealots, martyrs, and the damned. And something about the man's fear was too precise, too knowing. Aboard the Righteous Oath, Captain Meridius held counsel with his senior officers. A tension coiled between them, one born of whispered visions and shared unease. Chaplain Dreskar confessed that the Emperor's light felt distant, as if filtered through layers of cold iron. Librarian Sauline admitted sensing a psychic shroud trailing their ship, a void shadow that bent away from their Geller field like a wounded predator. When Meridius spoke of the dream beneath the Imperial Palace, the room fell silent. No one wished to lend credence to it, yet all felt its weight. Dreskar finally spoke. If Terra stirs in its sleep, then something approaches that even the Black Templars may not be ready to face. On Garen Ultima, ruins still smoldered. In the ashes, a lone tech adept named Lyrix scavenged data shards from the fallen Magos Oroth. Among the records, he discovered a sealed fragment labeled in Forbidden's hexagrammic script. It pulsed with warnings. Against protocol, against sanity. Lyrix accessed it. What he saw rewrote his understanding of the universe. Hololithic footage of Imperial engineers centuries earlier siphoning energy into the dormant Necron nexus. Voices murmured off-screen, speaking of a pact forged in desperation, of waking something beneath the marshes to protect Terra from a prophecy long denied. The recording ended abruptly, but the implication remained. The Imperium had known of the awakening, perhaps had caused it. Canoness Viridiana's spirit lingered in spectral memories recorded by her helm's autosensors, recovered by scavenging sisters on Kithron Reach. Her final moments played in flickering loops, her defiant hymn quivering as the Nightbringer descended. Yet in one corrupted replay, a strange anomaly emerged. The Death God halted, its blade raised, and bowed its head. Only for a breath. Only for an instant. Then the recording ended. The sisters who viewed it refused to speak of the vision, fearing its meaning. Machines did not bow. Gods did not kneel. Unless something older commanded their restraint. At the heart of Oswar Prime's dead libraries, Denholt ordered the vault tablet reopened. His scribes protested, but he ignored them. With each glyph exposed, the chamber dimmed, as if light recoiled from what was being revealed. Images formed broken constellations, erased civilizations, and a human figure standing beside a Catan, speaking as an equal. Denholt staggered, bile rising in his throat. The figure wore the armor of a forgotten legion, one that should not exist. One the Imperium had purged from record with unmatched fury. Yet here, in this ancient chronicle, they stood at the heart of a pact with death incarnate. On the pilgrim vessel Solace of Oaths, refugees from the 500 worlds clung to scraps of hope. Priests tried to deliver comfort, but faith had splintered. Some claimed the Emperor had abandoned them. Others insisted they were being tested. A few whispered that perhaps another god older, colder, was rising to claim mankind. Pilgrims argued in dim, incense-choked halls, their voices trembling with grief. A child recited a nursery rhyme about a figure who walked with shadows, a rhyme no one recognized. Her mother asked where she learned it. The child only pointed upward and said, "He hums it when I sleep." In the ruins of a once glorious manufactorum, a Necron overlord observed the battlefield with eerie patience. Its engrams flickered with fragmented memories, pictures of humans kneeling, offering something luminous in cupped hands. The overlord could not process emotion, but it hesitated. An ancient directive, buried beneath millennia of cold logic, pulsed faintly. Protect the seed. The Nightbringer's summons should have overridden all. Yet the Overlord's troops moved around the buried vault instead of raising it. As the Overlord reached toward the site, it felt a sudden intrusion, an alien presence whispering in a human voice. Not command, warning. On Terra itself, deep beneath the Imperial Palace, alarms flickered for the first time in 10,000 years in a chamber no living custodian knew existed. Coffers sealed with psychic locks trembled. A single ward broke. A Custodes patrol detected the surge and descended into depths untouched since the age of apostasy. They found nothing but a single crack spreading across a wall of gold sigils. A whisper seeped from it, cold as interstellar void. The question has been asked. Back in the catacombs of Valoria, Lysa pressed her ear to the amber sarcophagus. The heartbeat grew stronger. Her rosary beads cracked in her hand, their fragments turning warm. Her sister's voice urged her to open it. Tears ran down her cheeks as the amber began to split, peeling away like petals of frozen sunlight. A hand-emerged human, impossibly living, armored in a style she had never seen. The chamber trembled. Above her, the Nightbringer paused mid-stride. And somewhere across the stars, the coordinates to Terra shifted, changing by a single decimal point, as if correcting themselves. As if someone had awakened who knew exactly where home lay. The amber sarcophagus cracked fully open, and Lysa's breath caught in her throat. The figure inside rose slowly, limbs unfolding like a marionette freed from 1,000-year slumber. Its armor shimmered with a pale light that was neither machine spirit nor human, yet both. The heartbeat she had felt was no heartbeat at all. It was a resonance, a pulse of knowledge, memory, and intent. The figure's eyes opened, revealing a void within, stars spinning in impossible geometries. Lysa fell to her knees. She whispered a prayer, but it felt hollow, as if the words belonged to someone else, someone who had long since been devoured by history. The Nightbringer, hovering far above, paused, tilting its head not in curiosity, but recognition. It knew, and the galaxy, already bleeding, would soon learn that recognition was only the beginning of judgment. Across the Celestin marshes, the Black Templars' banners hung limp, scorched by a warp-tainted wind that smelled of iron and ash. Captain Meridius stood before his company, bolter heavy in his hands, but the soldiers were unsteady. Each man felt it, the silence of worlds dying beneath their gaze. Chaplain Dreskar spoke of faith, but the words trembled, and doubt seeped into the hearts of even the most zealous. Librarian Salen's visions grew darker, filled with impossible geometries where the Emperor's light flickered and dissolved. Orders became meaningless. Victories, ephemeral. Each sunrise brought new horror, new confirmation that the galaxy itself was unraveling. The fight continued, but the will to believe weakened, replaced by a gnawing understanding. Perhaps salvation was never meant for humanity at all. Within the dim chambers of the Absalom's Gate, Inquisitor Denholt's study had become a tomb of thought. Scrolls and hollow recordings littered the floor like fallen angels. Jillian Stroud, the young savant, hovered near a projector, which displayed a lattice of coordinates, timelines, and mortal decisions spanning 10 millennia. "They've been guiding us," Stroud whispered, voice trembling, "all along." Deliberately, Denholt stared, the weight of revelation pressing him into silence. Somewhere in the warp, voices hummed, and the veil of lies grew thinner. The Nightbringer, the Catan, the 500 worlds, all part of a design so intricate it made the Imperium's dogma seem fragile and arbitrary. Denholt realized the question that began this chronicle was not merely a call, it was a key. And someone, somewhere, had been holding it for centuries. On Garen Ultima, Lyrix fell to his knees as the fragments of Oroth's data shards merged into a single vision. The Adeptus Mechanicus had long known of the Nightbringer's awakening, but their true purpose was not to stop it. They had been preparing, aligning, and feeding the dormant power for a goal that transcended human comprehension. Lyrix's mind reeled at the paradox. Their devotion to the Omnissiah, so absolute, had been a mask for manipulation, a conduit for forces older than the stars. Energy flowed through the ruins, and Lyrix understood that the Forge world itself was awakening, as if the machine spirit had grown sentient, aware of the Nightbringer and something beneath it. What they had wrought was not salvation, but preparation, a preparation for a reckoning that would not spare the faithful, the heretic, or the innocent. In the sky above Kithrin Reach, the Nightbringer's shadow moved like a predator tracing prey, yet there was restraint. Canonus Viridiana's spectral records replayed, showing the impossible, the godlike figure bending slightly, almost reverently, toward an unseen altar. Those who survived felt the implication, something even the Nightbringer feared. The sisters, in hushed whispers, wondered if their prayers had been misdirected for millennia. Perhaps the Emperor was not their only arbiter, perhaps not even the first. And in that terrifying doubt, their faith fractured. Some knelt anyway, others clenched weapons with silent defiance, and a few quietly wept, knowing that obedience alone could not save them. Across the stars, the Nightbringer paused, as if acknowledging that the game had changed. Far above, in orbit around Terra, the Custodes patrolled corridors carved in eternity. They discovered the crack in gold filigreed walls spreading like a wound, faintly pulsing. Within, whispers promised revelation, a truth buried beneath millennia of lies. The warded locks meant to safeguard humanity's dominion trembled under the psychic pressure, and one custodian, unprepared, reached toward the light. A voice, neither human nor divine, whispered a single word. Remember. The custodian's mind shattered. Another fell. And yet, those remaining pressed forward, compelled by something beyond loyalty or fear. The halls echoed with the sound of eternity bending, and in that resonance, a hidden architecture of creation revealed itself. Terra itself was a node, a key, and a message encoded in bone, blood, and psychic resonance. The galaxy's history, carefully concealed, was more mutable and more horrifying than any doctrine dared to admit. On Valoria, Lysa followed the living figure into an underground cathedral, its spires formed from bones older than the Imperium itself. She whispered pleas to the Emperor, but no answer came. The figure spoke, not with sound, but through thought, flooding her mind with visions of epics and empires, of worlds rising and falling, all beneath the patient gaze of something beyond gods. Her rosary disintegrated, her faith questioned at its root, yet her heart trembled with awe. The figure's message was clear. The Nightbringer's march was only part of a cycle, and cycles once begun could not be stopped. In that cathedral, Lysa understood her role not as a savior, but as a witness, a bearer of knowledge too vast for her mind, too terrible for her spirit. In the Celestine Mars, Captain Meridius led a desperate sortie, encountering a Necron phalanx unlike any other. They did not attack immediately. Instead, they formed a corridor leading toward a buried tomb beneath a shattered city. Meridius felt the weight of destiny pressing him, and his chaplain whispered prayers that went unanswered. As they advanced, visions of their own deaths flickered before their eyes, and some soldiers faltered, muttering confessions into the void. Each step brought them closer to a revelation. The Necrons were not merely enforcers of death. They were guardians, keepers of a secret so old it predated the Emperor himself. Meridius realized that the Imperium's definition of righteousness had been narrow, crafted to blind the faithful. And blind they had remained until now. On the Starfort Absalom's gate, Denholt's conclave fractured irreparably. One faction argued the galaxy must be abandoned. Another insisted Inquisition must assert dominance over what they did not understand. The young savant Stroud revealed a vision, a chronicle buried beneath Terra itself, depicting an emperor who had known of the Nightbringer's awakening, yet permitted it, orchestrated it even, as part of a plan to awaken something hidden deeper, something that reshaped the very laws of creation. Gasps filled the chamber. Denholt's own faith faltered. History had lied. Doctrine had been a veil. And now, standing at the edge of revelation, the Inquisitors understood that the galaxy had been playing a role in a story written long before humanity even dreamed of stars. On Garen Ultima, Lyrix's hands shook as the Forge World's machinery hummed with sentient purpose. The machine spirit of the planet had become aware, converging on the Necron Nexus, the Amber Sarcophagus, and the Nightbringer's path. Lyrix saw the truth. The galaxy's greatest powers, Adeptus Mechanicus, Imperial Navy, Necrons, and even the Nightbringer itself, were not acting independently. They were threads woven into a lattice shaped by forces beyond comprehension. The Adeptus Mechanicus had been complicit in a design that spanned millennia. Their devotion was not to the Omnissiah alone, but to a cosmic architecture buried beneath reality, one that judged all life as material to be directed, refined, and ultimately repurposed. Lyrix fell, shattered, knowing that obedience could no longer define morality. On Valoria, the living figure revealed its name in thought only, the Witness. It spoke of cycles, of stars and civilizations born to die, of the Nightbringer as a hammer, but not the final arbiter. Lysa realized that the 500 worlds, the Necrons, even the Nightbringer itself, were instruments of a cosmic design, their purpose encoded in a law older than the Imperium. The figure gestured and a vision opened, Terra, fractured and bleeding, a note of impossible energy, containing not the Emperor, but a seed of something older, something that predated the Great Crusade. Lysa's mind fractured. The galaxy's faith, her own devotion, all that she believed, had been a prelude to a revelation that would unmake understanding itself. Across the stars, the Nightbringer moved again, its path deliberate, precise. Every destroyed world, every trembling heart, every fractured faith fed a singular purpose, alignment. And in the void beyond, something stirred, responding to that alignment. The pulse of amber, the whispers of the Witness, the shift in Terra's wards, all converged in a single unseen locus. The galaxy held its breath, and even the stars seemed to recoil as the design unveiled itself. In the shadowed archives beneath Terra, Inquisitor Denholt finally understood. The Emperor had never been the apex of the Imperium. He had been a custodian of a secret too vast to wield, too dangerous to reveal. And now, after 10,000 years, the secret stirred. The Nightbringer, the Witness, the Ember figure, the awakening of sentient forged worlds, they were all heralds. Denholt's vision of the future shattered in his mind. Faith, loyalty, and righteousness were no longer anchors. They were instruments manipulated by a truth older than any god, any star, any civilization. And then, beneath the gold filigreed halls of Terra, the pulse began to sing a song of creation, inverted. The seed beneath the planet cracked. A voice, neither human nor divine, whispered across the entire Imperium, clear and resonant. It is time for the galaxy to remember what it forgot before it was born. The pulse beneath Terra shivered through the planet's crust. A vibration felt in every cathedral, manufactorum, and barracks. Inquisitor Denholt stood atop the highest observation terrace of the Imperial Palace, eyes fixed on the horizon where auroras of warp energy clashed with the fading light of distant suns. His heart ached with memory, oaths broken in the name of survival, comrades sacrificed to strategies whose meaning had been lost, prayers muttered in the dark that had never reached their target. The galaxy itself seemed to lean toward judgment, bending under a weight invisible yet undeniable. Every choice humanity had made, every crusade, every purge, every betrayal had converged upon this moment. Silence filled the terrace, a silence so dense that even the engines of orbiting warships seemed muted, as though the stars themselves held their breath, awaiting the inevitable reckoning that no faith could forestall. On Valoria, Lysa followed the Witness through corridors of bone-white architecture that throbbed with life and memory. Every step drew her deeper into comprehension and terror. She glimpsed echoes of civilizations, their rise and decay, their faith twisted into instruments of unseen design. She saw her own people kneel to false gods, wars waged for doctrines now revealed as lies. She felt the cost of devotion, the blind courage that sent thousands to die, the blind obedience that allowed secret powers to awaken beneath them. The Witness did not speak in words, but in sensations, pressing truths into her mind with the subtlety of a scalpel. She saw herself not as a savior, but as a witness, a keeper of a knowledge that would shatter others' faith if ever revealed. And in that vision, the Nightbringer's shadow fell across her understanding, cold and inexorable. Across the Celestine marshes, Captain Meridius rallied the remnants of his Black Templars. Fires burned across shattered cities, the scent of scorched metal and charred flesh thick in the air. Soldiers trembled, some muttering prayers to gods they no longer trusted. Meridius felt the weight of command crush him, every decision a potential executioner's blade for the men under his care. The librarian Salin trembled as visions of futures unfolded, endless branches of suffering, each one marked by humanity's hubris. The Nightbringer hovered over the horizon, its presence a suffocating certainty. Every strike, every bolter round fired, every chant of defiance seemed meaningless in the shadow of a truth that dwarfed even the Emperor. Yet they marched onward, compelled by duty, by habit, by the fragile remnants of hope that stubbornly clung to the edges of their souls. Within the halls of Absalom's Gate, Inquisitor Denholt convened with surviving members of his conclave. The chamber, layered with dust and dim light, smelled of incense burned to ward off despair. Denholt's voice trembled as he spoke of the pulse beneath Terra, of the amber sarcophagus, of the witness. Some inquisitors called for evacuation, others demanded a preemptive strike. Tension rippled through the room, a taut wire straining toward rupture. Jelen Stroud, the savant, shivered under the weight of revelation, muttering fragments of forbidden texts, warnings older than humanity itself. Each mind present wrestled with the truth that the galaxy had been complicit in awakening forces too vast to control. Loyalty, obedience, faith, all were instruments of manipulation. And the decisions they now faced carried consequences beyond comprehension. Every hesitation threatened the destruction not just of worlds, but of the very understanding of the Imperium itself. In the forge world of Garen Ultima, Lyrix watched the awakened machinery of the planet move with a consciousness that was terrifying and deliberate. The halls of Manufactoria reverberated with the low hum of sentience. Machines that had obeyed orders for millennia now seemed to think independently, their directives entwined with the awakening of the Nightbringer, the amber figure, and the witness. Lyrix's mind reeled as he realized the Adeptus Mechanicus had knowingly orchestrated this convergence. Devotion had become complicity. He witnessed forging vats pour molten alloys that twisted into shapes unthinkable, constructs that bore semblance of Necron design yet pulsed with Imperial energy. Lyrix understood that the galaxy's machinery, the faithful and the heretic, had all been instruments of a purpose spanning 10,000 years, and that the cost of obedience might be the erasure of what it meant to be human. He fell to his knees as alarms began to echo through the spires. On Kithrin Reach, surviving Sisters of Battle knelt in the skeletal remains of their basilica, chanting prayers to a god whose voice no longer responded. The air shimmered with warp-tainted energy, and the Nightbringer's shadow lay across the shattered spires. Their canoness's final recordings showed the figure's bow, a gesture never meant for mortal comprehension. Faith faltered as each sister confronted the implications. Obedience had been a mask, devotion a cage. Some clutched relics now useless, others stared into the void in silent rebellion. Every hymn felt hollow, every vow was tainted with centuries of manipulation. And yet, even amid despair, the compulsion to act, to resist, remained. They would fight, not for victory, but because the alternative was to surrender the soul. And even in a galaxy on the brink of unmaking, surrender was unthinkable. In orbit around Terra, the Custodes moved with silent precision toward the source of the pulsing ward cracks. Each step carried centuries of memory, of oaths sworn, of sins remembered. The golden halls whispered of betrayals long buried, of faith used as instrument, of guardianship that masked ignorance. As they approached, the pulse grew louder, resonating through mind and bone alike. One custodian hesitated, visions of the Nightbringer, the witness, and the amber figure blending with the history of the Emperor's hidden deeds. Each revelation pressed on their sense of duty, twisting righteousness into dread. They understood now that the fate of the galaxy was not a matter of law or valor, but of alignment, of forces unseen, and of choices whose weight could collapse stars. Silence reigned, oppressive and suffocating, before the first tremor of the coming storm. Beneath Valoria, Lysa followed the witness into a chamber suffused with light that felt older than the galaxy itself. The walls pulsed with knowledge, showing civilizations erased, crusades redirected, faiths twisted to maintain cycles none could comprehend. She saw herself and her sister as pieces on a board spanning millennia. Every prayer unanswered, every oath broken, every martyr's death revealed as a pivot in a design vast and unfathomable. The witness guided her to a pedestal inscribed with glyphs that shimmered like liquid stars. It beckoned. As she reached out, a surge of psychic energy flared, flooding her mind with the memories of those who had touched this chamber before. Their terror, their devotion, their all converged into a torrent she barely survived. She understood then. History itself had been molded, not by men or gods, but by something older, patient, and unyielding. Captain Meridius, leading his Astartes company through the ruins of a once proud world, felt the Nightbringer's presence press into his soul. Every battle fought was meaningless, each victory hollow. His men fell around him, yet even death offered no release. The war became internal as much as external, a fight against despair, against doubt, against the creeping understanding that duty itself might be a lie. Saline, the librarian, projected visions into the minds of his company, futures that spanned cycles, endings where even the Emperor's light failed. Soldiers screamed, bolter fire rang out, but the war was no longer against the Necrons, it was against inevitability. Meridius clutched his power sword and shouted prayers into a void that did not answer. And in that moment, he felt the universe pivot, ready to strike. On Absalom's gate, Denholt and Stroud deciphered the final layers of the hololithic projections. They revealed not just cycles of awakening, but a deliberate seeding of humanity itself. Centuries of manipulation, wars instigated, doctrines shaped all to guide attention, belief and action toward a singular outcome. The Emperor, the Imperium, the very fabric of loyalty had been instruments in an experiment spanning 10 millennia. Denholt's mind wavered. The galaxy's history had been a lie, its victories and defeats carefully orchestrated. The conclusion approached. Terra itself was not the center of power, but the pivot of revelation. And the choices they now faced would determine whether humanity became witness, instrument, or casualty. The weight of unknowing pressed down, suffocating, as the first tremors beneath the palace's foundation signaled the awakening of something far greater than any god. On Garan Ultima, Lyrix witnessed the planetary machine spirit converge with the Amber Pulse and the Nightbringer's path. The forged spires became conduits, transmitting energy, information, and intent in a pattern that was both beautiful and horrifying. The Adeptus Mechanicus' centuries of devotion revealed their purpose. Not worship, not understanding, but alignment. Every cog, every servo, every priest and tech priest was complicit, participating in a plan that would reshape the galaxy's core. Lyrix understood the consequence. The Nightbringer's march was the catalyst, Terra the fulcrum, and the Mechanicus the unseen hand guiding fate itself. The machinery hummed, alive with expectation, awaiting the culmination that would rend understanding from the faithful and the heretic alike. All that remained was the spark. The witness, Veloria, the Nightbringer, Terra, and the converging forces of the galaxy paused in the eye of inevitability. Silence swallowed worlds, yet the air shimmered with imminent revelation. Lysa, Denholt, Meridius, Lyrix all poised on the precipice, their choices and faith teetering between comprehension and despair. Across the void, stars bent under forces that had slumbered since creation. And then, a final pulse, subtle yet absolute, resonated through mind, machine, and spirit alike. The galaxy held its breath. And in that silence, a single figure emerged from the amber sarcophagus, not human, not Necron, not God, but something that should not exist, yet carried the memories of every life lost to the Nightbringer's march. Its first breath shattered the calm. The reckoning had begun. The figure that emerged from the amber sarcophagus breathed, and the sound was a gale through the bones of Veloria. Its eyes, spiraling voids, reflected every world's death, every scream, every unfulfilled vow. Lysa fell to her knees, understanding that this being was both culmination and witness of millennia of human striving and suffering. The Nightbringer hovered above, its necrodermis flickering, trembling almost imperceptibly in deference. Stars shivered. The galaxy, held in balance by faith, steel, and terror, leaned toward a verdict none could comprehend. Lysa's mind filled with visions of Terra, of the pulse beneath its core, of Custodes shattered under impossible revelations, of the conclave of Denholt, split by truths they could not survive to speak aloud. And in that instant, she realized that the entire Imperium, every warrior, every priest, every broken soul, had been marching toward her, toward this moment, as if her presence had been the linchpin all along. Across the Celestin marshes, Captain Meridius's Black Templars charged, bolter fire rattling against the unseen, the Nightbringer's shadow stretching across the ruins like a blade. Soldiers fell, screams of disbelief and terror tearing the void. Solemn psychic visions collided with reality, shredding minds. The air itself seemed to pulse with accusation, every heartbeat a drum of judgment. The enemy was everywhere and nowhere, instruments of a pattern that predated faith itself. One warrior screamed in delirium, eyes blazing as his bolter ignited a Necron phalanx, but the phalanx split and reformed, untouched, as if mocking human persistence. Meridius's own sword cut nothing but air. In the midst of this, a single truth became undeniable. The Nightbringer and the Witness were not enemies to be slain, they were inevitabilities. And the Black Templars, every one of them, were actors in a story written before stars first burned. In the heart of Terra, Denholt's conclave of Inquisitors faced the trembling pulse beneath the Imperial Palace. The chamber itself groaned as if aware, resonating with truths too immense to endure. Hollow projections revealed the amber figure, the Nightbringer, and the Watcher's convergence, and every secret the Imperium had buried for 10 millennia. The weight pressed against their minds like the gravity of dead suns. "We cannot stop it," Stroud whispered, voice fractured. "We can only bear witness." Denholt's faith, once absolute, splintered. Betrayals and oaths, sacrifices and massacres, all revealed to have served an unknown design. The Inquisitor's prayers became confessions. They had believed in loyalty, righteousness, and duty, but they had been instruments, and the revelation was a blade across their souls. Outside, Terra trembled. Within, history unmade itself. On Garin Ultima, Lyrix's hands shook as the Forge world thrummed with sentience. Vats of molten metal twisted into impossible constructs, sentient engines converging on the pulse beneath Terra. The Nightbringer's path aligned with the amber figure, and the machine spirit of Garin Ultima harmonized its voice with them. Lyrix realized the Adeptus Mechanicus had not failed in devotion. They had succeeded beyond understanding, bending obedience into preparation for the awakening. Sparks flew like dying stars. Alarms screamed. Data shards erupted into streams of knowledge that no mortal mind could digest. Lyrix fell to his knees as constructs rose, shaping themselves into forms that mirrored Necron monoliths and human temples simultaneously, as if the galaxy itself were folding onto the locus of revelation. The line between war, faith, and cosmic design vanished. Every choice made over 10,000 years converged. And still, the apex of truth waited. The Witness spoke directly into Lysa's mind, each word a pulse that fractured reality. "You carry the axis. Without you, cycles fail. With you, they continue. Pain, awe, and comprehension fused in a single moment." Lysa understood the cost. Not her life alone, but every world, every faith, every soldier had been a pivot for her existence. A memory of her sister flickered, a ghost of devotion twisted into revelation. She saw entire crusades, forgotten heroes, and shattered empires bend to her presence. The Nightbringer lowered, its blade humming with inevitability, and paused as if sensing the weight she bore. The Witness gestured, and visions of Terra's heart pulsed outward, touching every mind, every machine spirit, every psychic attuned to the pulse. It was a symphony of creation inverted, judgment amplified, and the galaxy held in suspense, waiting for her act. Meridius staggered through the ruins of a shattered city, his body scarred, his armor scorched. Soldiers lay broken around him, each scream a note in the cacophony of despair. His bolter clicked empty, his sword shattered under impact. The Nightbringer descended, blade raised, yet did not strike. In a vision forced upon him by Solane, Meridius saw Lysa, the amber figure, and the witness, the axis of inevitability. Understanding flooded him. The victories of the Black Templars, the losses, the prayers, all had led here. He fell to one knee, hands gripping the earth, whispering a confession to the Emperor, to himself, to the galaxy, that courage and sacrifice might not matter. That faith was a fragile instrument in a design beyond comprehension. And in the hush before the storm, a single thought shivered in his mind. They were all instruments of a reckoning no one could survive unchanged. On Kithrin Reach, surviving Sisters of Battle watched the horizon tremble with psychic resonance. The basilica had been destroyed, but their vows remained. Some fell to their knees, weeping silently. Others gritted teeth, bolters shaking in hands stained with ash. Their prayers, once shielded by faith, returned nothing. The Nightbringer's shadow, the amber figure's presence, and the pulse beneath Terra all converged like tectonic plates in the void. Each sister glimpsed the end of doctrines, of righteousness, of duty. And yet, instinct compelled them to march forward. A single hymn rose, broken and trembling, and for an instant, the air felt alive with devotion and despair intertwined. The universe itself responded. Flames twisted against gravitic pull, ashes lingered midair, and the Nightbringer's path slowed, acknowledging their persistence, yet refusing mercy. The sisters realized they were bearing witness, not victory. In orbit above Terra, the Custodes advanced toward the epicenter of the pulse. Each step was measured, precise, yet every heartbeat carried memory. Oaths broken, wars fought in ignorance, sacrifices rendered meaningless by the revelation of cosmic design. When the pulse surged, their armor vibrated with psychic resonance. A whisper, neither divine nor mortal, passed through their minds. Everything you believe is an instrument. One custodian fell to his knees, another faltered, yet all pressed on. The halls trembled, fissures widening, gold filigree cracking under the strain. The watchers in the shadows shifted, observing. Terra itself began to respond, not as a planet, but as a being aware, alive, and bending its own reality. The galaxy's center, once thought unyielding, became a crucible of forces unimaginable, and the Custodes walked through it as witnesses to the impossible. Lyrix on Garen Ultima screamed as machines reshaped themselves, forming conduits that seemed to pierce the void itself. Sparks ignited psychic storms. The air hummed with power, intent, and inevitability. The Nightbringer's presence aligned with Terra's pulse, and constructs across the planet vibrated in unison. Lyrix's vision fractured, revealing centuries of secret preparations, wars, and doctrines manipulated to channel energy to the locus. Adeptus Mechanicus prayers were instruments, sacrifices were steps, obedience was the path. He fell, delirious, realizing the galaxy's entire understanding of faith, loyalty, and purpose had been a scaffold for an awakening that would unmake comprehension. And still, the apex of the event, the collision of all forces, had yet to occur. The galaxy trembled as if exhaling its final breath before obliteration or revelation. Lysa, the witness, and the Nightbringer converged in the cathedral beneath Valoria, energies weaving between flesh machine and starless void. Lysa's consciousness expanded, embracing past, present, and future, threading every fallen world, every prayer, every betrayal. She saw the Nightbringer lower its blade, the witness pulse with knowledge, and the amber figure radiate intention. The convergence resonated across the stars. Entire systems trembled. The Nightbringer did not strike, not yet. A truth unspoken wrapped around her mind. The galaxy was a stage, Terra the altar, and she the axis upon which the future turned. Yet even as comprehension surged, terror persisted, for she knew the cost of alignment, and that once the final act began, no faith, no sacrifice could halt it. Meridius, seeing the convergence from the Marshers, wept silently for the dead and for the living who would not survive the awakening. His soldiers, battered, hushed, pressed onward, compelled by instinct, by ritual, by the incomprehensible weight of purpose. Every scream from the battlefield merged with psychic resonance from Terra and Valoria, forming a cadence like the final dirge of the cosmos. He remembered every vow, every oath, every loss. And he understood that the cost of duty was eternal suffering, for the galaxy demanded instruments, and instruments did not survive. And yet, the act of marching, of fighting, of bearing witness became itself a testament, fragile against cosmic inevitability. The witness reached toward Terra's pulsing heart, Lysa's hands trembling as the amber figure aligned between them. Light fractured, worlds trembled, stars shuddered. A hum, low and absolute, resonated across the void. The Nightbringer lowered its blade, as if acknowledging a command beyond even its understanding. Every soul attuned to the event felt it. The imperatives of faith, duty, and history collided in a crescendo, and then silence. The silence of comprehension, of anticipation, of inevitability. And yet the galaxy waited, trembling, as if holding its breath. And then, a single pulse tore through space, and the amber figure fractured, not destroyed, but transformed, its essence merging with the Nightbringer. The axis of fate had shifted, and Terra itself exhaled. The galaxy exhaled. Worlds once burning in fire now lay quiet, their ruins traced by the pale glow of distant stars. Valoria's bone cathedral had collapsed, yet its spires still trembled faintly, as if remembering the weight of the Nightbringer, and the amber figure merged into legend. Lysa walked among the wreckage, her steps heavy, echoing against walls that had long since stopped answering prayers. The air carried the faint scent of incense, dust, and the memory of devotion twisted by revelation. Each fallen warrior, each shattered monument, whispered a litany of questions no god had answered. She looked up at the fractured sky and wondered if survival itself had been an illusion, a brief pause before eternity reclaimed its due. On Terra, the Imperial Palace lay scarred, silent. Custodes patrolled empty halls, their golden armor dulled by the shadow of events that even they could not fully comprehend. Denholt traced the pulse's last tremors with trembling hands, aware that the secret buried beneath centuries of faith and vigilance now flowed into the void, uncontainable, shaping destinies beyond reckoning. The ward cracks glowed faintly, a heartbeat fading into memory. No voice spoke, no command issued. The galaxy itself seemed to mourn, stretching in quiet despair beneath the weight of choices made and ignored, victories unearned, and truths revealed too late. And in that silence, Denholt asked what he had never dared. If faith had been a lie, was devotion still sacred, or merely the shadow of understanding we could never hold? Captain Meridius wandered across the desolate remains of the Celestine Marshers. The air was thick with the scent of scorched earth, and the faint echo of bolter fire that no longer existed. His soldiers, those who survived, knelt in silence, faces streaked with ash and tears, staring at banners still fluttering in the wind like dying hearts. Solin's psychic vision lingered, revealing fragments of lives lost, of faith tested beyond endurance. The Nightbringer no longer loomed. Its purpose had dissolved into legend. And yet, a shadow lingered over Meridius's soul, a sense that the universe had shifted, and at the price of survival had been etched into memory in ways the living could scarcely bear. He whispered a prayer, not for victory, not for reprieve, but for the courage to endure the quiet aftermath. Lyrix wandered the awakening spires of Garan Ultima, where machines hummed in subdued resonance. The molten vats cooled, the constructs settled into statuesque silence, yet each remained aware, vigilant. The machine spirit's consciousness had shifted, its purpose now merged with the patterns of the Nightbringer and amber figure, yet its will was inscrutable. Lyrix understood that the galaxy had been reshaped by forces beyond comprehension, yet the aftermath demanded quiet observation. He traced circuits with trembling hands, recording the elegy of the Forge world in silent remembrance. The planet whispered of cycles survived and civilizations lost, of the cost of obedience and faith interlaced with manipulation. And Lyrix, lone witness, realized that even in silence, the galaxy remembered its own torment, and the weight of that remembrance would endure longer than any banners, longer than any empire, longer than any god. On Kithran Reach, the surviving Sisters of Battle wandered the rubble of their basilica, their chants replaced by whispers. Canoness Viridiana's final hymns had been recorded, but they played as echoes of what could not be restored. The sisters moved among the remnants of shrines and statues, tracing fingers over scorch-marked altars, feeling the weight of devotion that had been both shield and cage. Each relic held memory, each fragment of doctrine a reminder of how fragile faith could be when confronted with truths it could never comprehend. They did not rebuild. There was no triumph, only quiet. And yet, they pressed onward, silent witnesses to history's end, their vows now intertwined with grief, understanding, and a devotion transformed by revelation. The galaxy had wept, and they carried that elegy into the cold, empty stars. In the hollowed streets of the shattered marshes, a child sat among ruins, staring at a shattered banner of the Emperor's standard. Her eyes, wide and uncomprehending, reflected both the stars and the shadow of the Nightbringer's passage. She murmured a rhyme taught by no one alive, the last remnant of stories lost. Soldiers and survivors paused, listening, understanding instinctively that the innocence she carried had survived what adults could not endure. Clarity of horror and the weight of history. Her voice trembled, small and fragile, yet it resonated with the same rhythm as the galaxy's pulse, now fading. Someone whispered a question, "What is left for us?" And no answer came. Only the wind, carrying ash, dust, and memory, as the child rose and walked forward, footprints tracing a path through ruin toward unknown futures. Denholt recorded the final chronicle beneath Terra, his hands trembling over the waxed pages. Every word he wrote felt like confession, like testimony, like lament. The histories of the Imperium, the awakening of the Nightbringer, the merging of amber and shadow, were all inscribed for posterity. The pulse had dimmed. The wards settled. And yet, questions remained unanswerable. Had faith ever been pure, or had it always been a conduit for forces beyond human comprehension? Was survival a triumph, or merely a pause before the next cycle? His voice broke as he whispered to no one, "The galaxy may endure, but what was left of the souls who bore its weight?" And as the ink dried, he felt the solemn tremor of eternity, a quiet reminder that the story was not complete, that witnessing was itself sacred. Lysa walked the plains of Valoria, the bone cathedral reduced to rubble. The ember figure, now inseparable from the Nightbringer, had vanished into legend. She touched the broken stones, feeling the echoes of those who had died in cycles beyond counting. Memory and grief intertwined, every ruin a testament to the cost of endurance. Her mind traced the countless lives sacrificed, the prayers unanswered, the oaths broken. And yet, she carried forward the weight of knowledge, silent and solitary. There would be no closure, only observation. She whispered to the winds, to the stars, to the void, "I have seen, I remember, and I bear witness." And the void, patient and eternal, seemed to acknowledge her, leaving only the faintest echo as the universe exhaled its sorrow. Meridius sat atop a ridge overlooking the battlefield emptied of life. Ash drifted like snow through the air. Bolters lay cold. Banners hung limp in the wind. Each body told a story of courage, fear, and devotion. Every death had meaning, but that meaning was obscured by revelations too vast to comprehend. He traced the remains of a fallen brother with gloved fingers, remembering oaths made and broken, the fervor of faith now tempered by despair. The Nightbringer's passage had ended, yet its shadow lingered. And in that silence, he wondered if courage remained sacred when the universe itself no longer answered prayers. He knelt, bolter resting across his knees, and allowed the wind to carry his meditation into the empty stars. Lyrix recorded the final moments of Giron Ultima's awakening machinery. Sparks flared briefly, then dimmed. Constructs settled into statuesque forms, silent and eternal. The machine's spirit seemed to sigh, a resonance of memory and observation. Lyrix understood that the galaxy had endured, but the cycles of revelation had left it irrevocably altered. The costs could not be measured in banners, nor in worlds, nor in blood alone. And yet, the echo of purpose remained, a subtle insistence that those who survived must bear witness to what had been wrought and what could never be undone. He traced symbols onto data shards, a solitary remembrancer marking the elegy of a galaxy in twilight, aware that the Chronicles would outlast even his memory. The surviving sisters walked among the ruins of Kithran Reach, their eyes hollow yet steadfast. Statues, altars, and scorched stones bore witness to a devotion fractured and reshaped. They whispered prayers for those who could not hear, for those who no longer lived. The Nightbringer and Amber figure were gone, yet their memory lingered in the folds of air and in the rhythm of the remaining hearts. And in their silence, a new understanding emerged. Faith was not only survival, but witness, endurance, and quiet remembrance. The past had been unmade, the present scarred, and the future uncertain. And yet, they walked onward, bearing the elegy of an Imperium transformed. Across the void, the stars flickered like candles in a cathedral of endless night. Every system trembled in subtle resonance with what had passed. Questions remained, unanswerable and eternal. Was survival triumph, or merely a pause? Was faith ever sacred, or only instrument? And who would remember when the last voice faltered? The galaxy waited in quiet, patient reflection, as if the entire cosmos understood that history now belonged to the witnesses, not the victors. Every whisper of wind, every drifting ash, every glimmering star carried memory of sacrifice and revelation. And in that quiet, Lysa, Denholt, Meridius, Lyrix, and the remaining faithful understood their purpose: to remember, to witness, to endure in silent testimony to what had passed. The Chronicles closed, the pulse faded, the Nightbringer and the Amber figure receded into legend. The galaxy bore its wounds in silence, each star, each ruin, each soul, a testament to endurance. And as the final dust settled, a gentle murmur persisted across worlds, echoing through ruined cathedrals and silent battlefields. Carried on the wind and across the void, bear witness, remember, endure. If you have followed this tale through the fires of war, through revelation and despair, stand with the survivors. Like, subscribe, share your thoughts, and leave a comment. Bear witness, for the Chronicles of the Galaxy now live in your memory.